Hello all, and welcome to Explained with Dylan. We all know that vampires aren't real. Or are they? I am not going to argue that vampires like Dracula, the ones you've heard about in stories, are real. But there is something out there, lurking anywhere. It could be right nearby you. That is much, much, much scarier. Okay, I kind of lied when I said it could be anywhere. Because it's a fish, which means that it kind of needs to be in the water. And it's nowhere around here. But it is in the Great Lakes, and that is a problem. Sea lampreys, also known as the vampire fish, have been taking over the Great Lakes. Ever since they started to improve canals in that area so that transport could easily go between the lakes and out to the Atlantic Ocean through the St. Lawrence River, then these fish that are native to the Atlantic Ocean have been coming in. Now, since they have evolved with the fish in the Atlantic Ocean, they would never do any harm. They'd attach themselves to it, sure, but they would never kill the fish. But in the Great Lakes, then fish are not used to vampire fish being there, which means that vampire fish kill, and they kill badly. Every single fish is able to kill up to 18 kilograms of fish a year. Every single vampire fish. And there are a lot. The government started noticing this problem in the 1950s and 60s, so they started trying to control it, but it had already gotten very bad. In the 1930s, they used to catch quite a bit of lake trout in the Great Lakes. 30 years later, in the 1960s, only 2% of that amount was caught in any given year. It dropped off 98% because so many of them had been killed. 100 million pounds a year is what they were estimating when they finally started to control it in the 1950s and 60s. And since then, it's gone pretty well. The fish pretty much went away, so we seem just fine. But this would be a pretty boring video if that was the case. Oh yeah, a fish came to the Great Lakes 50, 60 years ago, but then we controlled it, and it is all gone, and we all lived happily ever after. But obviously, that is not the case, because there has to be something nowadays. We just cannot catch a break. You see, during COVID, one of the effects you would have never thought would come from a global pandemic is the fact that they weren't able to control the populations the same way, which meant that they started to go mad again, because they just weren't controlled whatsoever. They started going crazy. And you see, the problem is that every single female can produce 100,000 eggs in their lifetime. Yes, you did hear me correctly. Of course you did, because I enunciate very well. 100,000 eggs. That is a lot. Now, you see, there is one good thing about that, is the fact that it takes 2 to 3 years for the fish to fully mature enough to start preying on other fish. Guess how long it's been since the global pandemic started? Yep, 2 to 3 years. Which means right now, those fish are taking over the Great Lakes once again. Now, this poses no remote threat to humans. The fish are just fine for us. But you saw my statistic, the one I told you about, how it dropped off 98%. We could be running straight into that again. Now, they are doing their best to start controlling it as much as possible again. But it will take a while to get all the way to where they were back before COVID. Who would have guessed, out of all the things that COVID caused, that vampire fish taking over the Great Lakes would be one of them? That, I do not get it. But the good news is that in 5 years, 10 years down the road, we should be just fine. But in the short term, we could be losing a lot of the fish in the Great Lakes. And that is a problem, because the humans eat a lot of the fish in the Great Lakes. Which means that they're going to have to find other ways to source those fish, and that could mean there's also going to be some shortages of fish, less fish in the market as a whole. But we'll have to see. They're just starting to come in now, but they are doing their best they can to control as many of the vampire fish as possible. But for now, thanks for watching.